Yo, what's good, everybody? In today's video, I want to talk about positioning. Positioning is very, very important on both attack side and defense, but for the sake of today's video, I want to talk mainly about defensive positioning. I want to talk about the things that you need to be asking yourself as a player in the pre-round to dictate your positioning. I want to talk about how you should be repositioning later on in the round and what's a signal for you to reposition. And I also want to talk about this idea of prioritizing your life on defense. Okay, but before we get started, I want to plug my private coaching real quick. If you guys have any interest in doing any one-on-one sessions with me, go ahead and join my Discord down below and send me a DM. I offer private sessions for $40 a pop. Each session generally goes for about an hour, maybe an hour, 5 minutes. And if you wanted to book multiple sessions with me, it'll be $35 per session. Now, we can do VOD review, we can do team VOD review, we can do agent mastery, we can do question and answer, we can look at long-term goals and come up with short-term goals, we can do routines, we can do, I don't know if I said agent mastery already, we can do IGL coaching. Any of those things are available with me. I'm going to do my best to bring you guys value within the hour session. You guys let me know what you need and what you want, and I'll do my best to kind of bring you guys and into a spot where you can feel comfortable about improving and set yourself up for success, right? So let's talk about positioning now. Let's get back to the video. Valorant. Let's talk about Valorant real quick. Valorant is a very unique game. There's lots of things going on. There's lots of moving pieces. There's lots of different pieces of utility. Tons of different agents. 7 different maps in a map pool at a single time. So there's a lot of information overload. But a lot of the times we need to do our best to simplify things for us. And what we should be doing is analyzing the information in the round and then kind of processing that information and asking ourselves, is this a good position for me to play based on what I know and what I've just analyzed? And so I'm sure you guys have seen me talk about this in other videos, but we need to be holding tab in the pre-round. We need to be looking at the money of the enemy team. We need to be looking at the ultimates of the other team. We also need to be looking at the agent composition of the other team. All 3 of these things will let you know what you should be doing and how you should be positioning yourself in the pre-round. Okay? There's going to be certain areas on certain maps that are super unfavorable if you're playing against an Omen, but they might be more favorable if you're playing against a Clove. Okay? If that's the case, can we kind of come to that conclusion and position ourselves in those positions to get some value? We should be able to if we do a good job of processing the information. So the number one important thing that when it comes to setting yourself up for success and positioning yourself well is using the pre-round time efficiently. I put out a pre-round checklist video not too long ago. If you haven't seen that, I definitely recommend that you guys take a look at that. Use your pre-round time efficiently. Take a look at the money. Take a look at the ults. Take a look at your teammates' money and ults. Take a look at your teammates' positioning. Can you play off of your teammate, right? All of these things are very, very important. We need to be logical in the decisions that we make, okay? And I also want you guys to understand something. Just because something makes sense in the early round doesn't mean it makes sense in the late round, okay? So we need to have kind of this dynamic positioning and dynamic understanding of what's strong in this early round and what's strong in the late round, okay? So we'll talk about that a little bit later when we get into more of the meat and potatoes of the video, all right? Now, first things first. After we've analyzed the information in the round, we've understood what the massive threats to us are, we need to think about having an identity on defense, okay? We need to fight for a little bit of space, okay? And in order to do that, my tip to you guys is this: at the start of the half on defense, you guys should be playing closer to the barrier, okay? There's a couple reasons for this, okay? You should start the games positioning yourself closer to the barrier, all right? And it's a psychological thing. The reason why you would do this is because now you would one-way A main, okay? So if you're playing A, you one-way A main, and you position yourself close. Now, what does this allow you to do? Number 1, it allows you to hear footsteps of the enemy a lot earlier than you would if you were playing a spot like Dice or Hell or even Tree. If you're positioned closely, you can call for your teammates' rotation early enough if you hear a bunch of footsteps. And this 2-second rotational timing could win you the round in some situations. What's the second thing that it does? If you play close and position yourself close, you can contest this one way. And when you contest this one way, the enemy team has to respect the fact that you're in this staging area. Okay? So you always want to try to contest certain staging areas and fight for certain space. Now, the reason for that is that when teams respect that you could be in this zone, in this white rectangle, they will use utility to clear it out. Or they'll make footsteps giving you information. They'll let you know that they're taking this. Okay? Oftentimes they'll use utility. And that's what we want. Because we want to go ahead and assume what is the worst case scenario for us on any site. A full util dump execution. Okay? So in order to understand this, we need to pull up the agent composition that we're playing against, right? So let's just pull up the most common example. I'm going to use a match comp. I know there's a lot of Reyna that we'll see here instead of KO, but let's just use KO for the sake of this video. What is the worst case scenario for us on A? Okay, there's two of them. We either get hard rushed with an Omen blind off rip and Jet updraft dashing on you with a Sova dart, here on the crane, and then a knife landing close, okay? This is pretty bad for us, okay, with like a Killjoy Molly. Now, this might not happen in your ranked games, but you are likely to get rushed from time to time, okay? And so what you need to do is you need to make sure that you're accounting for this possibility. So you need to, in the pre-round, communicate with your teammate what you plan to do if you get rushed. Or, in other words, you need to have an escape plan, all right? If you can't hold on to the space, what are we doing? It can't be that you and your teammates are going to make assumptions and play off of each other. It should be communicated. If you don't feel like using your mic, go ahead and type it out. If they rush A, let's fall back. If they rush A, let's fight it. If they rush A, let's go tree. If they rush A, can you smoke it off? If they rush A, can you throw a KO molly? All of these things are fine, but we need to do a good job of communicating with our teammates, okay? So number one, start of the round. Read the information and communicate with our teammates. Come up with a plan based off of the enemy team's utility. And let's start these games by playing close and contesting space. Because when we contest space, the enemy team respects the fact that we could be there. And when they respect the fact that we're there, they use utility on us in the staging area instead of on site. And that's what we want. Okay? Now, the reason why we don't want a full exec on the site is what? Look at this. This is our worst case scenario, guys. This is what I was talking about earlier. A full execute. Now, again, I know you might not be seeing this in ranked all the time, but this is worst case scenario for us. We don't want, where are we going to play on site if all of this happens? Nowhere. We're going to be at, immense risk of dying, and that's what we want to avoid. So we need to position ourselves close to contest this area at the start of the rounds. Okay. Now I want to pull a couple of other maps and explain to you guys how this is a parallel that you see on pretty much any map that's not a Viper single controller. Sunset, we see a lot of one ways A main with A main contention. We see a lot of smokes deep B main with people contesting B main. Sometimes we see smokes bottom mid, right? On bind, a lot of times we'll see the brim smoke showers, right? Or smoke deep short, or even smoke deep long sometimes, correct? On Lotus, we'll see a one-way in A main or a one-way deep C, okay? What else am I missing? Split, we'll see a one-way B main a lot of the time, or a deep smoke A main, right? This is because you can't let the enemy team just have a ton of space for free. You need to position yourself to kind of show a little bit of resistance so they respect that you're there. Okay, guys? It's very, very important. So position yourself close early on the half. That's the number one tip, along with reading all the information and being logical with your decision making. Okay? The second thing that I want to talk about is repositioning. When do we reposition? We reposition when the enemy team knows where we're at and we've lost the advantage, or if we've baited out enough utility in that area to now create a favorable position for us. Okay? Now, let's use A main, for example. This is a really good one. Let's say we're playing KO and Omen, close A main, and the enemy team goes for a Omen flash like this, and we instantly throw a smoke here, and now we throw a KO molly in the smoke. Okay? We were going to fight for A main at the start of the round, but now we've decided we can't. But now we can fall back and play areas like Gen and Hell, because we don't have to worry about the Omen blind anymore, because it's been already used. So if we feel like there's an advantageous spot for us to reposition to later in the round that wasn't advantageous in the pre-round because of a piece of utility, that's something that we should consider. There's other examples of this that are very, very important to consider. If the enemy team doesn't have any smokes, you should position yourself differently to play crossfires and prioritize fighting kill zones. Okay, so if the enemy team doesn't have smokes, we want to. So this is our kill zone, right? And for those of you that haven't seen my kill zone video, please go take a look at it. It's really important to understand. Kill zone is an area that can be kind of like, we can kind of put a brim molly here. This is an area where attack side doesn't want to spend a lot of time in this area. Okay, and the reason for that is they are open to a multitude of angles in this area, right? And when they're open to a multitude of angles, anybody can peek you on any of these angles and have an advantageous fight on you, right? So if the enemy team, if we're on defense and the enemy team's omen dies in the round, we can play spots like here and here, right, as a crossfire. So when the enemy team runs out into main here, you know, chamber can peek, and then now fade can peek, and we can do a crossfire in these areas. We don't want to be taking fights on people while they're in the no zones. Okay, no zones will be shown as the areas behind a kill zone. These are areas where the enemy can isolate angles and fight us in an advantageous spot for them. Okay, so we want to position ourselves differently if the enemy team is missing certain pieces of util. Another example of this is the Sova drone, in Sova Dart. So if Sova perishes in the round and the enemy team doesn't have a recon anymore, we could play somewhere like here, right? If we have teammates towards cat. And this is a really good angle that's really hard for teams to clear a lot of the time. So I want you guys to understand that just because something's strong in the pre-round doesn't mean it's strong in the late round. Another reason why we should reposition is if the enemy team knows that we are somewhere, okay? If the enemy team knows that we're playing a certain position, we should reposition. But it's very important that we reposition silently. If you reposition silently, the enemy team will still have to respect the fact that you're in an area, and they'll likely use utility to clear you. And when they use utility to clear you, you can hear that and you can communicate that to your teammates and call for rotations, okay? The last thing I want to talk about in terms, when it comes to positioning, is positioning off of your teammates, okay? If you're standing here at dice and you see your teammate close A main, go help your teammate. A plan that is executed together will always beat the optimal positioning or the right play. A plan that's executed together always beats the right play. There is really no right play. The right play is one that you do together. Okay, guys? And so if you see your teammate position here, or if you see your teammate falling back over here, can you think about a way that you can now get into a crossfire with them or play off of them? We want to take as many advantage fights on defense as possible. I've said this in other videos. We want to get as many kills with our brain, right? Having solid positioning and solid peak timing versus having kills with our aim. Okay, the first kill you get should be with your aim / your positioning. Second kill should be with your brain, your raw mechanical skill, and your aim. Okay, that's the way that you should be approaching your positioning on a lot of these maps. Okay, hopefully a lot of this makes sense to you guys. If you have any questions, please drop a question. Please drop them down in the comments below. If you want further clarification, maybe it's worth getting in a private session with me so we can talk about this stuff further and we can go map by map and figure things out. Okay. I think that's pretty much it for the video. I hope you guys enjoy this type of content. This is more of a fundamental thing, but it's also very important to kind of remind yourself of, if you feel like you're losing a lot of these 50-50 engagements, it's probably because you're positioning yourself poorly or you're peaking at a poor time before the enemy has entered these kill zones that we want to fight in if we're the defensive side. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate all the support and the love lately. I will see you guys in the next video.